What is up, everyone? This is Uncommon Ramen. Before I get into the video, let me remind you that if you like my content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you feel the need to support me, hit me up on my Patreon at patreon.com/uncommonramen, capital U, capital R. I do all this in my free time, so any amount of support can help me bring more of this content to you more often. And as always, if you like to know when the videos are posting, please hit the bell icon so you can be notified. Yeah, let's get right into this. We are doing another deck tech. This is going to be a Boros deck tech. This is one of those decks where I saw an interaction that I thought was hilarious, and I went with it. So today we're looking at Akroma, Vision of Ixidor, and Rograkh, Son of Rograkh. Rograkh. Rograkh is a 0-cost, 0/1, first strike menace trample with partner. And Akroma, Vision of Ixidor, is 5 and 2 white for a 6/6 flying, first strike, vigilance, and trample. And at the beginning of each combat until end of turn, each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 if it has first strike, and so on for double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, protection, reach, trample, vigilance, and partner. So this is a really interesting interaction because Rograkh, even though he only costs 0, has first strike, menace, trample, and partner, which Akroma will see. So on combat, if Akroma is in play, Rograkh could hit for will receive +4/+4, making him a 4/5, which means he could potentially swing in for 4. So this is going to be a keyword soup deck. This is very much like the Cathrol deck tech that I did before. So obviously we're looking at Boros colors this time. Let's take a look at the creatures. And the creatures are the biggest part of this deck, I do believe. Starting with our adult gold dragon. This guy is 3, a red, and a white for a 4/3 with flying, lifelink, and haste. So with Akroma on the battlefield during combat, this sees +3/+3, bringing it up to a 7/6, which is very formidable. Next up, we have Aerial Responder, 1 and 2 white for a 2/3, flying, vigilance, and lifelink. Again, seeing +3/+3. We have Akroma, Angel of Fury. This is 5 and 3 red for a 6/6. It cannot be countered. It has flying, trample, protection, and fire breathing. Akroma, Angel of Fury, gets +1/+1 until end of turn for every red mana that you pump into her. She also has Morph for 3 and 3 red, which makes her much easier to cast. But again, this is one of those, she sees a +3/+3 during combat as long as Vision of Ixidor is in play. We have Akroma, Angel of Wrath. This is 5 and 3 white for a 6/6 flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection. Again, this one is just seeing a whole lot of keywords here. We're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're getting +6/+6. So assuming that Vision of Ixidor is in play and you're capable of keeping it protected, on combat, this is going to get +6/+6, becoming a 12/12. Next up, we have Angelic Skirmisher, 4 and 2 white, flying for a 4/4. At the beginning of each combat, choose first strike, vigilance, lifelink. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. So you can basically paste on a keyword here and just give that extra bonus. Next up, we have Anger, 3 and a red for a 2/2 haste. As long as Anger is in your graveyard and you control a mountain, creatures you control have haste. Again, we're not only pasting on a keyword here, but we're giving all our creatures haste, which is such an incredible thing in this deck. If we can attack the minute we play something, like for instance Rograkh, it really does take advantage of Vision of Ixidor's abilities. Next up, we have Archetype of Aggression. 1 and 2 red for a 3/2. Creatures you control have trample, and creatures your opponents control lose trample and cannot have or gain trample. Again, we're pasting on a keyword here, which just is 1 more +1 with Akroma. Next up, we have Aurelia the War Leader. 2 red, and 2 white for 3/4 flying, vigilance, and haste. Whenever Aurelia the War Leader attacks for the first time each turn, untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So we're going to see +3/+3 just from keywords alone. And then on top of that, we're going to get a secondary combat phase, which is just deadly in this deck. Assuming, again, if you can keep Akroma alive. Next up, we have Baneslayer Angel, 3 and 2 white for a 5/5 flying, first strike, lifelink protection. So again, we're seeing +4/+4 on that guy. Bastion Protector is 2 and a white for a 3/3. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible. So we're going to throw another keyword on Akroma, although I don't think she sees herself. But we're going to give her indestructible, which makes it really hard to get rid of her. So that's part of the protection here. Next up, we have Crystalline Giant. This is 3 for 3/3 at the beginning of combat on your turn. You're going to choose a kind of counter at random that Crystalline Giant doesn't have on it from among Flying, First Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, Vigilance, and +1/+1. And then you're going to put that on Crystalline Giant. So slowly but surely, he's just going to get more and more formidable with his keywords, which again Akroma is going to see, and he's just going to become bigger and bigger. Not to mention he has a +1/+1 counter that can go on him as well. Next up, we have Danitha Compassion, Paragon. This is 2 and a white for a 2/2 first strike, vigilance, lifelink. Aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Again, we're seeing +3/+3, so it's a 5/5 on combat. Then we have Giada, or yeah, I'm going to say Giada. I know some people say Giada, but I feel like it's Giada. Font of Hope, 1 and a white for a 2/2 flying vigilance. Each other angel you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. And you can tap it for white mana, but you can only spend this to cast an angel spell. There's a lot of angels in here, not to mention she gets the keywords here. So with Vision of Ixodor in play, that's +2/+2. It gives +1/+1 to angels as they come into play. And like I said, there's a lot of angels in here. So they're going to see that and get +1/+1 on ETB. It only costs 2, so it's an early game thing. Just a really good card. Next up, we have Guardian of Faith. 1 and 2 white for a 3/2 flash vigilance. When Guardian of Faith enters the battlefield, any number of other creatures you control phase out. This is like a budget Teferi's protection. Doesn't protect you, but it definitely keeps your creatures safe from board wipes. Next up, we have Halvar, God of Battle. 2 and 2 white. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike. At the beginning of each combat, you may attach target aura or equipment attached to a creature you control to target creature you control. It is a 4/4, and it also has a flip side to it, which is an equipment. Just go ahead and pull that off real quick. So we have Sword of the Realms, 1 and a white. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has vigilance. Whenever equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand, equipped for 1 and a white. So this actually has... you could play it either way. For Halvar, you're going to receive the double strike keyword, which is just another keyword to throw on your creatures, but double strike is incredible. If you do it for the equipment, you get +2/+0 and vigilance, which is yet another keyword on there. And then on top of that, if the creature dies, you get to return it to your hand. So it's a great way to protect things that you need to stay in play. So, for instance, Akroma, Vision of Ixodor, because it costs 7, it's very imperative that you protect her as much as possible. Because as soon as your opponents realize what's going on, they are going to kill her. She's almost a kill on sight. So that is Halvar, God of Battle. Next up, we have Healer's Hawk. 1 white for a 1/1 flying lifelink. This is... a really incredibly good card here because not only does it have flying, it has lifelink, and with Akroma on board, this becomes a 3/3 with flying and lifelink, which for one you can't argue with, and is one of 2 creatures in here that cost 1 that are just incredible for this deck. Next up, we have Keeper of the Accord, 3 and a white for a 3/4 at the beginning of each opponent's end step. If that player controls more creatures than you do, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, and at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a basic plains card, put that onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. This is one of White's many ways of getting ahead when things are kind of down and out for them. This is a very high CMC deck. So having something like this is actually going to benefit you quite a bit, not only in the fetching part, but also because you're going to spend a lot of time without the majority creatures. Next up, we have Knight of the White Orchid, 2 white for a 2/2 first strike. When Knight of the White Orchid enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a Plains card, put that onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. Just another way to get some ramp out there. And again, if you are on the draw, you're going to be able to take advantage of this most likely more often than not. Next up, we have Lyra Dawnbringer, 3 and 2 white for a 5/5 flying, first strike lifelink. Other angels you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. So it has 3 keywords on its own. It gives a keyword to other angels, and it gives +1/+1 to other angels. And again, since we're running several angels in here, this is a fantastic card for synergy. Next up, we have Audric Bloodcursed, 1 a red and a white for a 3/3. When Audric Bloodcursed enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities from among flying, first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance found among creatures you control. We're playing a keyword deck, so this is going to happen quite a bit, and we're going to see quite a few blood tokens, unless, of course, they're keeping you well under control. Next up, we have Audric Lunarch Marshal, 3 and a white for a 3/3. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature you control has first strike, and the same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. This is super cool because it allows your creatures that have keywords to share those keywords with every other creature you have in play. And again, Akroma Vision of Ixidor is going to see all of that and create huge creatures. With this creature in play, even Akroma Vision of Ixidor is going to share her keywords as well, and it's just going to make this deck really ridiculous. So Audric with Akroma Vision is just absolutely insane. Next up, we have Righteous Valkyrie, 2 and a white for a flying, or 2/4 flyer. Whenever another angel or cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness, and as long as you have at least 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2. So it kind of ends up being a anthem if you end up having 47 or more life, and it's just a really good card in general. Next up, we have the other 1 cost in here, Segovian Angel, 1 white for a 1/1 flying vigilance. Again, with Akroma in play, we're going to see 2 keywords, which makes her a 3/3 on attack, which is just really good for 1. Next up, we have Solemn Simulacrum, 4 for a 2/2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. And whenever it dies, you get to draw a card. Again, white has trouble with ramps, so does red, so this is just a great way to ramp. Then we have Sun Titan, 4 and 2 white for a 6/6 with Vigilance. When Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. There is usually no downside to this. It's just a really good card. Next up, we have Swift Blade Vindicator, 1 red, 1 white for a 1/1 double strike vigilance trample. With Akroma on the table, this guy is a 4/4 double strike vigilance trample, which is just absolutely insane. Next up, we have Valkyrie Harbinger. This is a 4 and 2 white for a 4/5 flying lifelink. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained 4 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. I like this because not only are we seeing a keyword soup here of flying and lifelink, making this effectively 6/7 on combat with Akroma in play, but the lifelink here is going to feed into her other ability, which allows you to play 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance. Those 2 keywords are going to be seen as well, so those effectively on combat will be 6/6s. Next up, we have Venerable Warsinger, 1 a red and a white for a 3/3 vigilance trample. Whenever Venerable Warsinger deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of damage Venerable Warsinger dealt to that player. Again, with Akroma in this deck, this is a fantastic card. And especially if Audric is in play, this guy is just going to get much larger. And you could see just about anything in your graveyard coming back. Next up, we have Weathered Sentinels. 3 for a 2/5 defender, vigilance, reach, trample. Weathered Sentinels can attack players who attacked you during your last turn as though it didn't have defender. And Weathered Sentinels, or whenever Weathered Sentinels attacks, it gets +3/+3 and gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is a whole lot of bad for your opponent with Akroma in play. Just with the vigilance, reach, and trample, it's getting +3/+3, but because it's attacking, it's actually going to get indestructible as well, which means it's going to get +4/+4. And from its own ability on attack, it gets +3/+3. So it's actually getting +7/+7 with vigilance, reach, trample, and indestructible, making it 9/12 on attack, which is just absolutely absurdly large. Next up, we have Zatalpa, Primal Dawn. This is the last one in the creatures. 6 and 2 white for a 4/8 flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible. Again, these keywords, there's 5 of them. That makes him effectively a 9/17. And, with trample and double strike, that is destructive to say the least. Next up, we're going to take a look at instants. Starting with Akroma's Will. 3 and a white. Choose 1. If you control a commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So, with a commander on play, you get to slap 6 keywords onto all of your creatures. That is so good for this deck. Next up, we have Boros Charm. 1 red and 1 white. Choose 1. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player or planeswalker. Permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Or target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So if you want to use this as an instant, you can potentially give indestructible to your creatures during your turn, although that's kind of a waste of the spell. You'd probably rather use it for the double strike. However, on opponents' turns, when they cast board wipes, this is a fantastic way to keep your creatures from dying. So that's something that I would hold it for, unless we're in the late game and you're going to kill somebody, in which case, yeah, we could throw that double strike or that indestructible on there just before the attack. Next up, we have Flawless Maneuver. 2 and a white. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Again, same concept here. We're just trying to make sure that board wipes miss for the most part. And even if in worst case scenario, just trying to keep Akroma, Vision of Ixodor alive. Next up, we have Path to Exile. 1 white, remove target creature from the game. Exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a base land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle their library. Next up, we got Response and Resurgence. For Response, we got 2 hybrid red-white. Response deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Resurgence is 3, a red and a white. Creatures you control gain first strike and vigilance until end of turn. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. So Response is great for dealing with something that might be causing you issues or could possibly be ending your game. But really what it's in here is for the Resurgence to give the 2 keywords and get that second combat phase. Needless to say, both sides of this are very good. Next up, we have Return to Dust. 2 and 2 white. Exile target artifact or enchantment. If you cast a spell during your main phase, you may exile up to 1 other target artifact or enchantment. This is super good for getting rid of 2 very problem cards that are on the table. You can use it at instant speed or during your main phase. Does not matter. Next up, we have Swords to Plowshares. This is 1 white. Exile target creature's controller gains life equal to its power. We have Unbreakable Formation. 2 and a white. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. It has Addendum. If you cast a spell during your main phase, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain Vigilance until end of turn. So this is, again, with that Boros Charm, similar, that you could cast this during your turn to give your creatures a boost by giving them +1/+1 counters and a new keyword. or you can use it to protect yourself. Either way, super good. And then finally, we have Wear and Tear. 1 in a red, destroy target artifact. For 1 white, destroy target enchantment. And you can fuse them by paying 1 a red and a white to do both. Next up, we're going to take a look at sorceries. There's actually very few sorceries in here. Starting with Angel Fire Ignition. 1 a red and a white. Put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. It gains Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste until end of turn. And it flashes back for 2 a red and white. This is something that I had teched in my Feather deck, and it is just an incredibly good sorcery. I know it's sorcery speed, but at the end of the day, this thing is giving 5 keywords and 2+1/+1 counters. With Vision of Ixodor on the battlefield, that's +7/+7 on combat for 3 mana. And even if you flash it back for 4 mana, that's still +7/+7. Next up, we have Austere Command. 4 and 2 white, choose 2, destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. Can't go wrong with this board wipe. Very good card. Next up, we have Blasphemous Act. 8 in a red, costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield, and deals 13 damage to each creature. Another great board wipe. Next up, we have Rip Apart. Red and a white. Choose 1. Rip Apart deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. Again, just really good spot removal. And then finally, we have Vanquish the Horde. 6 and 2 white. Costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. Very similar to the Blasphemous Act, except pretty much never misses. Next, we're going to take a look at artifacts, and there are quite a few artifacts in here. Starting with Akroma's Memorial. For 7, we get an artifact that gives all creatures you control flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black and red. We're giving, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keywords right there, and it just sits in place static. This is just an absolute bomb of a card in this deck. Next up, we have Arcane Signet. Cost 2, you can tap it for your commander's color identity. Then we got Blackblade Reforged. Cost 2, equips for 3 on a legendary creature, equips for 7 otherwise. The equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. You slap this on Rograkh, and he just becomes monstrously good. Then we have Boros Charm 2, and if you tap 1 and it, you get red-white. Commander Sphere costs 3. You can tap it for your color identity, or you can sacrifice it to draw a card. Next, we have Eater of Virtue. This costs 1. Whenever the equipped creature dies, you get to exile it. The equipped creature gets +2/+0. It equips for 1. And as long as a card is exiled with Eater of Virtue... as long as a card exiled with Eater of Virtue has flying, the equipped creature has flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Protection, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. So, obviously, throughout the course of the game, your opponent's going to do absolutely everything they can do to try and get rid of your creatures. The Eater of Virtue helps you save up those keywords and slap them onto another creature throughout the course of the game. Next up, we have Haunted Cloak. Costs 3. Equips for 1. Equipped creature has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. That's 3 keywords. And again, that Haste, super good. Next up, we have Lightning Greaves. Costs 2. Equips for 0. Equipped creature has Haste and Shroud. I don't know if she sees Shroud, but if she does, that's 2 keywords right there. Super good. Next, we have Maul of the Skyclaves. This is 2 and a white. When Maul of the Skyclaves enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has flying and first strike, and it equips for 2 and 2 white. We're getting +2/+2 just on equip, and then we're getting 2 keywords, which is another additional +2/+2, so it's just kind of really good in this deck. Next, we have Soul Ring, costs 1, taps for 2. We got Swiftfoot Boots, costs 2, equips for 1. Equipped creature has Hexproof and Haste, so another 2 keywords right there. Next, we have Sword of the Animist. Costs 2, equipped creature gets +1/+1, equips for 2. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. This is in here just strictly for the ramp. Again, Akroma, Vision of Ixidor costs 7. If she dies, the first time she dies, it's going to cost 9 to pull her back out from the command zone, and that's just going to continuously go up. So this card is in here to help facilitate the fact that Akroma dying is very expensive. Next up, we have Sword of Vengeance. Costs 3, equips for 3. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. That's 4 keywords. Can't go wrong with that. Next up, we have Talisman of Conviction. Costs 2. You can tap it for colorless, or you can tap it for red-white as long as you have Talisman deal 1 damage to you. Then we have Tome of Legends. Costs 2. Tome of Legends enters the battlefield with a page counter on it. Whenever your commander enters the battlefield or attacks, put a page counter on Tome of Legends. For 1, you can tap it to remove a page counter from Tome of Legends to draw a card. There's a couple reasons in here. Obviously, we're going to be recasting our commanders as often as possible, but Rograkh on the original cast only costs 0. So it goes 0, 2, 4, 6, so on and so forth. This is going to see a lot of page counters through the course of that, not to mention just from attacking with a commander. So super good in this deck. All right, finally, next we're going to take a look at enchantments. First enchantment we have is Commander's Insignia. 2 and 2 white creatures you control get +1/+1 for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. Again, Rograkh costs 0. So we're going to see Rograkh hit the table a couple of times, as well as Akroma. We're at least going to get +1. We're probably going to get anywhere from +3 to +5, which is really good for this deck. Next, we have Concerted Effort. 2 and 2 white at the beginning of each player's upkeep. All creatures you control gain flying until end of turn if a creature you control has flying. The same is true for Fear, First Strike, Double Strike, Landwalk, Protection, Trample, and Vigilance. Again, another way to share all those keywords and really make this a disgusting deck. Next, we have Legion's Initiative. 1 red, 1 white. Red creatures you control get +1/+0. White creatures you control get +0/+1. You can tap a red and a white to exile Legion's Initiative to exile all creatures you control at the beginning of your next combat. Return those cards to the battlefield under your control. Under owner's control, and those creatures gain haste until end of turn. So this is another kind of Teferi's effect, except it doesn't affect you. And then on top of that, it gives all the creatures haste when they come back. So it's another keyword that they get to see. Next up, we have On Sarah's Wings. This is 3 and a white for an enchant creature. Enchanted creature is legendary and gets +1/+1 and has flying, vigilance, and lifelink. So we're giving 3 keywords, giving it +1/+1, and making it legendary. Next up, we have Outlaw's Merriment. 1 a red and 2 white. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1 at random. Create a red and white creature token with those characteristics. You either get a 3/1 human warrior with trample and haste, a 2/1 human cleric with lifelink and haste, or a 1/2 human rogue with haste, and when this creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to any target. Again, just a whole bunch of keywords here. Super good. And finally, we have True Conviction. 3 and 3 white. Creatures you control have double strike and lifelink. So 2 keywords, and one of the most important ones there being double strike. Super disgusting, and it's an enchantment. Can't argue with that. Next, we're going to look at Planeswalkers. We got 1 Planeswalker. We have Elspeth Resplendent. This is 3 and 2 white. She comes in with 5 loyalty. For +1 loyalty, you can choose up to 1 target creature, put a +1/+1 counter on +1/+1 counter and a counter from among flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilance on it. So we're giving it a permanent keyword, which is great. Not to mention a permanent +1/+1 counter. For -3, you get to look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter on it, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Just a great way to cheat stuff in. And then finally, from -7, you get to create 5 3/3 white angel creature tokens with flying. That's obviously not the reason. We got this in here for the plus, but obviously if you get to the point where the -7 could definitely benefit you and possibly close out the game, hey, it's there and it's good. It gives them gives you 5 3/3s with flying, so the flying is seen by Akroma, making them 4/4s. Super good. All right, next we're going to look at non-basic lands. Starting with Battlefield Forge, which is the red-white pain land. We got Boros Garrison, the red-white bounce land. We got Clifftop Retreat, the red-white check land. We got Command Beacon. For you can tap it for colorless, or you can tap and sack it to put your commander into your hand from the command zone. We have this in here again for Akroma. It's going to be difficult the more she dies to cast her, so this is a great way to cast her for her actual casting cost. Next up, we have Command Tower. Taps for commander's color identity. We got Fabled Passage, fetch land. Got Fury Calm Snarl, another red-white check land. Got Needle Verge Pathway, which has, I believe, Pillar Verge Pathway on the other side. The red-white pathway. We got Sacred Foundry, red-white Shockland. Got Slayer's Stronghold. You can tap it for colorless, or you can tap red-white and it to have target creature get +2/+0, gain vigilance and haste until end of turn. We have Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. You can tap it for colorless, or you can tap 2, a red and a white, and it, and target creature gains double strike until end of turn. And finally, we got Temple of Triumph, the red-white scry land. And the last thing we're going to look at is basic lands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 mountains. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 planes. And that is the Akroma Rograkh deck, which is a keyword soup based on getting a whole bunch of keywords on your creatures and buffing them using Vision of Ixidor. Rograkh on his own is just a powerful creature in the midst of Akroma Vision of Ixidor. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. But let's keep it positive. I'll be removing any negative comments. And that is it, guys. Until next time, peace.